winners? Let the pros show you how to make money. General Manager Al DeMarco, a regular contributor on Fox Sports, MSNBC, and Comcast Sports TV, brings over 25 years of handicapping experience to the table. CEO Steve Budin, the author of Bets, Drugs, and Rock and Roll, is the man responsible for creating the online betting industry. Together, they lead PickNation.com, your number one source for winners.
7 of 9 weeks so far this NFL season, the underdogs have ruled the roost, having the advantage against the gamblers and, of course, on the odds makers' sides in Vegas. That means two things. Generally, sports books making a boatload of bucks, and generally you, the gambling public, you're probably losing. For the season, underdogs, a nice, consistent 18 games over 500. That, of course, only good if you've been betting the pups. Hi, everyone. Al DeMarco here along with Steve Budin. This is the Pick Nation Report. Every single Sunday, we are joining you, breaking down all of your NFL games from a point spread perspective. I've been a professional sports handicapper for over 25 years, used to be a sports reporter, so I use all the experience that I gained from being on the field, being in the locker rooms, being around players, really analyzing games from the perspective of who has the advantage in the matchups on the field. The computer trends mean nothing to me. It's personnel. That's how I handicap games. That's why I've won 8 straight college and pro football seasons coming into this year. Steve Budin, of course, totally different side of the fence, literally and figuratively, because this is the guy, a former bookmaker, who was really the creator of what we know now as the offshore sportsbook industry.
Right, so as a former bookmaker, obviously if I get anywhere near the locker rooms or the players, they arrest me. So I'm nowhere near them. My opinion's completely different. What I do is I take the customers that I've had over the years that I respect, the gamblers whose opinions I respect, and I bring those to the table. I call them my crews. I bring them to the table. Obviously, we've been very successful. Finally had a winning week last week again. That's very good, and we are ready to get them this week.
Steve, let me ask you, here we are, 9 weeks played in the season. 7 of those weeks, as I just said, the underdogs have owned the advantage in Vegas. I personally don't ever remember seeing an NFL season where dogs have had this type of consistent run early in the season. Normally, you'll see dogs go on this 3 or 4 week tear somewhere in the midpoint because ultimately the lines even out. The odds makers catch up with the public. They take advantage of their reliance on betting too many favorites. But I've just never seen dogs come this early. I don't know if it's because of parity in the NFL, because of so many good teams like the Vikings and the Cowboys having off seasons. I'm not too sure what to make of it. I mean, how about you from a bookmaker's perspective?
Well, the good news is now more than ever, customers really need us. You know, because when the underdogs are winning like this, like you said earlier, and the customers are going down, the players are going down, that's when you grab a hold of some good advice. I think the marquee teams like Dallas going down, I think had a big effect on customers this year. I think customers are so used to betting the favorite. And when I say customers, I mean gamblers. I mean our clients are so used to betting the favorites that they don't care what the trends say. They're watching the underdogs win every week, but they can't get themselves over that line to cross the line and play the underdogs because it's like at a crap table. If you watch a bunch of 7s come in, you still bet on the next hand to be the big hand. You don't start betting no 7. Very hard to bet no 7. That's when the guy comes up to the table and hits 9 passes in your face after you've been waiting for that your whole life. So everyone's kind of waiting for that big roll, waiting for the favorites to come and cash in. Every week's going to be that week, but it just hasn't happened yet.
No, it's almost like suspension of disbelief. I think the gambling public out there, they just think that this is going to be the week the favorites come in. If you don't change your methodology when it comes to handicapping and when it comes to gambling, or even your ideology, which are 2 big words for this show, let me tell you, that's how you're going to lose money. I mean, I used the analogy. I remember back in college, once had this awful psychology course where the guy gave us a true-false test, 25 tests. There were 23 consecutive true answers. And you look at it and you go, that can't be. It can't be. There's got to be a false in there. So out of a class of over 150 people, he said 92% of you went back, and this is the day before computers, and erased one of the trues to put in a false. And he said it wasn't because you thought the answer was wrong. It's because you couldn't believe all the consecutive trues were there. And I think the same thing happens here with these dogs coming in. Everybody, as you say, and as I mentioned early in the show, basic human nature, you're inclined to go with favorites. Now, I think today's card is very interesting, though, because of the 12 games, 7 of them have point spreads of a field goal or less. So you're not going to see the big dogs. The biggest dog on the board, of course, is Dallas against New York Giants.
And they are a big dog, let me tell you.
Yeah, the Cowboys certainly are. Followed by the Indianapolis game where the line is 7 against Cincinnati. And then you've got the 4.5-point margin against New England and Pittsburgh. But basically, everything else you have today, you're looking at 3-point lines. So it'll be interesting. And talking about 3 points, before we get going on today's games and take our first caller, who's going to be Joe in Atlanta, let's just go back for one moment, talk about the Chicago-Buffalo game. We have talked about the value of buying the half point. When the line crosses, in my particular case, when the line crosses 3, 7, 4, 7, and sometimes 10. You always say, and I think it's so important, you use the power of money
Correct.
to hedge the odds in your favor, buying a little insurance. So many guys out there did not buy that half point on Chicago-Buffalo last week, a game that you had two bad teams playing in Toronto. Naturally, where does the game fall? Right there on 3. It just amazes me still. Guys refuse to pay the little extra juice. We're talking 20 cents more on a dollar when you're buying off a 3, 130 versus 110, but they won't do it.
Yeah, obviously if you just take every 3-point underdog and buy the half point across the board, you're going to get killed. But when you have a game like that and you know it's going to be close, you know it's going to come down to the end, $1.30 for a little extra insurance goes a long way. Everyone that took that won. Everyone that didn't lost. It's a great example that you bring up.
And it's a game that you could have middled as well, because you could have had the half point on either side and walked away with a middle as well. Another thing that happened this past week, the Monday night game. So strange, because generally the public comes in heavy on the public favorite, and let's face it, the Steelers are a heavy public favorite, and they usually come in on the chalk anyway on Monday night. But you saw a reversal here. You saw the late money come big on Cincinnati, moving that line from 6.5 down to 6, down to 5, 5.5, even to 4.5 at the Hilton, which was stunning, the move on the dog last Monday night.
Well, this was the classic situation where you have all the people that you call suckers, which are the people that really don't know what they're doing, the regular gamblers that don't have any help or any information. They came in all week long betting the Steelers. They bet them like the game was over. Game started 3.5, and there was 7s in some places showing up. And then all of a sudden, the wise guys woke up and said, "Wait a second. This is a 3.5, 4-point spread. It's now 6.5, 7. Forget the handicapping. Forget everything else. Just based on the money, we have to now, the suckers putting this game in a position where we can take 7 points, take 6.5 points on a game that should be 4. This is a no-brainer." They wound up taking the Bengals and winning.
Exactly. And, there was clearly a case of it depending on where you shopped and at what time, even on Monday, what time you bought the game, whether you won, lost, or pushed.
Unless you're a handicapper for our company, because, what happens with us it's very difficult for us. We release a game like that, it's very hard to tell when our customers buy it. If they got the plus 6.5, which they should have gotten, we always tell our customers when we give out the dogs to wait, because that line is just going to go up. When we give out the favorites, to bet it early for the same reason. You don't want to lay 6.5 on a game that you could lay 4.5 on. They should have won, but we tell all of our handicappers, if there's a doubt anywhere, take the push.
Exactly.
Because that's the right thing to do. If you had any customers that the last thing you want is them to show up on our site, you're bragging about the win, they didn't get the win, and they feel like they've gotten slighted in some way.
Because as I always tell the guys, games, I grade all the games for all the handicappers at the site, and I was not real popular on Tuesday morning, let me tell you, because everybody within seconds of that final drive stalling for the Bengals were going, "What, did I win? Did I lose?"
Right.
And I'm going, "No, you pushed."
But a lot of our handicappers bet the games as well, and it's so hard for a handicapper when he goes to the cashier and cashes a ticket for him to count that as a loss somehow. But a lot of our handicappers stationed in Vegas, they have the luxury of being able to go to every single hotel, find the best lines. We always tell our customers that are in Vegas to do the same. If you're playing offshore, it helps to have a few accounts that you can trust so you can shop that line. It's the difference between winning and losing sometimes.
Okay, let's go to our first caller today, who's coming to us from Atlanta. Joe, how you doing?